You ever have those mornings where you walk into the shop and you can just smell the electricity in the air? Not the, I left the soldering iron on kind of smell, but that buzz of things changing faster than a bandsaw blade snaps.
That's a very poetic way of saying the internet is currently screaming about 3D printers again, Tiger.
It really is. I sat down with my first cup of coffee today, and the maker forums looked like a hornet's nest someone had poked with a piece of rebar. We're talking about Bamboo Lab and this whole dust up over open source software.
Right, specifically them putting the squeeze on a version of Orca Slicer. Now, for the folks who aren't knee-deep in resin and plastic every night, why is this making people's blood pressure spike?
It's the classic Castle versus the Commons argument. See, the whole reason we even have affordable 3D printers today is because a bunch of brilliant nerds shared their homework for free a decade ago. It's a culture built on, I figured this out, now you make it better.
And Bamboo Lab kind of burst onto the scene with these It Just Works machines, which people loved, until they started acting like a tech giant protecting a secret recipe.
Exactly. They're trying to protect their ecosystem, which I get from a business perspective. You want your hardware and software to fit together like a well-cut mortise and tenon. But when you start telling people they can't modify the software to work with your machines, that's like a chisel manufacturer telling you that you aren't allowed to grind a different bevel on the blade.
Good luck enforcing that in your shop.
I've seen this movie before in the woodworking world with proprietary battery platforms. It starts with convenience and ends with you being tethered to one brand because you spent a fortune on their specific black box technology. The takeaway here is to stay nimble. If you buy a tool that's locked behind a digital fence, you don't really own that tool. You're just leasing the right to use it.
Speaking of owning your tools, let's talk about owning a career. We saw a post from a 19-year-old kid today, basically a blank slate, asking if the electrical trade is actually worth the sweat. He's been studying math formulas on his own for a year.
Man, that kid has my heart. 19 is such a precarious age. You're old enough to feel the weight of the world, but young enough that a veteran foreman can still make you feel like you've got two left thumbs and no brain cells.
He's worried about the grunt phase, the digging, the van organizing, the being the low man on the totem pole.
Oh, the grunt phase is mandatory. It's the universe's way of checking if you actually want to be there. I remember my first month as a helper, I spent more time redirected by a shovel than I did touching a power tool. I felt like a highly trained pack mule.
But you'd tell him to stick with it?
In a heartbeat. Look, when you're 19, you think you're trading your time for a paycheck. You aren't. You're trading your time for a knowledge bank. Every wire you pull and every box you make up is a deposit. By the time that kid is 25, he's not just an employee. He's a walking, breathing set of solutions. He'll be able to walk onto any job site in the country and be the most valuable person there because he knows how the invisible skeleton of a building works.
It's the ultimate job security. You can't outsource a blown circuit breaker to an AI in another country.
Not unless that AI has a pair of linesman pliers and a very sturdy ladder.
Let's pivot to the money. This blew my mind. Fortune Business Insights is saying the handicraft market is going to be worth over $1 trillion by 2025. A trillion with a T.
That is a lot of birdhouses, Alex.
It's more than birdhouses. People are starving for things that haven't been touched by a robot arm in a factory. They want the thumbprint in the clay. They want the slightly irregular grain in the walnut.
It's the antidote economy. We spend all day looking at glass screens and plastic surfaces. When we get home, we want to touch something that felt the sun. But here's the trap most makers fall into. They treat their shop like a hobby and wonder why their bank account looks like a disaster zone.
You're talking about the pricing trap. I see people on Etsy all the time selling things for basically the cost of the wood.
It kills me. It's like they're paying the customer for the privilege of working. I've lived that. I once built a custom oak entertainment center for a neighbor and charged him about $4 an hour if you did the math. I think I actually lost money because of the amount of sandpaper I went through.
That's why we need to talk about the TigerDen formula. Break it down for the person who's scared to ask for what they're worth.
It's basic survival math. Take your materials, and I mean everything, even the glue and the finish. Add your labor at a rate that actually pays your rent, and add your overhead. That's your base. Multiply that by 2 to get your wholesale price. Then, and here's the part that makes people's palms sweaty, multiply that by 2 to get your retail price.
People are going to hear that and think, no one will pay that for my cutting board.
Then they aren't your customer. If you're competing with the big box stores on price, you've already lost. You're competing on the story, the quality, and the fact that you're a human being who obsessed over the joinery. If the math doesn't make you feel a little bit uncomfortable when you say the number out loud, you probably aren't charging enough.
So, if someone is listening to this and they've got a free Saturday coming up, where should they start? We've got 3 levels on the blog today.
If you're just starting to get some sawdust in your lungs, go for the custom cutting board. It's the gateway drug of woodworking. It teaches you everything: how wood moves, how grain reacts to moisture, and most importantly, how to fix a gap when your cuts aren't perfectly square. Believe me, I fixed enough gaps with sawdust and glue to fill a silo.
And for the intermediate folks?
Lean into the community. Check out the Sunday Night Live replays. There is something visceral about watching a pro hit a snag in real time and seeing how they pivot. You don't learn craftsmanship when things go right. You learn it when the wood splits or the weld doesn't take, and you have to find a way out of the woods.
And the hero project, the gaming table?
That's the big mountain. If you want to be the legend of your friend group, build the gaming table. You're combining upholstery, maybe some LED electronics, and some serious structural joinery. It's a project that tests your patience more than your tools.
It sounds like a lot of potential for what you call involuntary learning moments.
Oh, you'll have plenty of those. I remember trying to install a hidden chip drawer in a table once. I measured it 4 times, cut it once, and it still fit like a foot in a glove that's 3 sizes too small. I spent 6 hours sanding a piece of wood that was never going to work.
But you finished it.
Eventually, and that's the whole point of the TigerDen, isn't it? Whether it's 3D printing, wiring a house, or building a business, you're going to walk into your shop and find a problem you didn't have yesterday. The craft isn't about avoiding the mess. It's about having the right mindset to clean it up.
I think that's the perfect place to leave it. Whether you're 19 and holding a multimeter for the first time, or you're trying to figure out why your slicer software is acting up, just stay in the game.
Exactly. Don't let the technical stuff intimidate the soul out of your work. Tools change, software updates, and markets shift, but the feeling of holding something you made with your own 2 hands, that's the one thing they can't automate.
Well said. We'll see you all in the shop.
Keep the blades sharp and the spirit curious, folks.